used to seeing on social media, but I thought we could read through some Reddit stories. I'll just kind of whisper about the stories, and I'll whisper some of my opinions, and you can listen or put stuff in the background and just kind of drift off to sleep with the sweet, sweet sounds of me whispering Reddit to you to see you off to sleep. First, how are you? I hope you are well. I'm doing a lot better than some of my last videos that I put up. I'll probably talk about that in a different video though. Today I really kind of just thought it would be fun to read off some Reddit stuff for you. So I'm gonna get started on that. The first Reddit story that I have is an Am I the A-hole? This is a story told from the perspective of a 21-year-old woman who wants to know if she's the asshole for being upset during a night out. So she says, I recently went out with some friends for a birthday. We went out drinking and went to 3 different bars and went to a restaurant to eat. It was for 2 birthday girls and 2 of their friends. The birthday girls we'll call EL and EZ. And then their 2 friends were BL and MK. And then on top of those 4 people, 2 birthday girls, 2 friends, 4. She says that there's 7 people total, but she only lists out 6. But for the sake of this, we will assume that there are 7 people. 2 birthday girls, a designated driver, 2 to 3 other friends, and then this woman. It seems like maybe there are 2 designated drivers. If you remember in other videos that I've done, I've talked about how I'm a perfectionist and how being perfect isn't gonna really work. And here's a really good example because this is the first paragraph and I have really mucked it up. That's okay though, that's okay. I'll get better. Let me just kind of start over, and that way we can try to be clear about this. The OP, who's 21, went out with some friends on their birthday. There were 2 friends who were having a birthday. 2 friends came along. There was the OP, and then there were 2 designated drivers. I did figure out that there are 2 designated drivers. So, in the beginning of the night, it was just the 6 people, and then one of the women joined later because they had somewhere else to go first. They were all having a good time and whatnot, but when we eventually met up with BL, everything was cool and whatnot, and we were still hanging out until we started going to the bars, and then everyone kind of grouped off together. EL went with BL, and EZ went with MK. I understand to be cautious in bars, and I'm not upset about that, but what I am upset about is that no one ever volunteered to go with me, even after I was asking. I would ask if anyone would go with me to the bar to go get a drink, or if anyone wanted anything, and it was always just me that went. We eventually went out on the dance floor and had at the bar, and it wasn't too big, and we were all hanging out together. I was trying to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but then I turned around and EL and BL were off on the dance floor, which, whatever, maybe they were just tired, and in the midst of me looking for E and B to make sure that they were okay, EZ and MK left the dance floor as well, leaving me there by myself. So, to recap, this woman goes out with her friends. Her friends pair off at some point throughout the night and begin excluding her from the pairings. And then, the way I'm reading this here, they are kind of almost actively ditching her. Say off the dance floor, they're all out there together, and then she turns around and some of them are gone, so she looks for them, and while her back is turned to the other group, the this night is going so far for her. She says, I understand that it could be that they were just drunk, but they had all been in our group of 4, and the 2 drivers were hanging out together on their own, so I felt very alone. All the conversations were about stuff that the 4 of them knew, and when I tried to join in a couple of times, I either got dismissed or ignored. So I just kept to myself and scrolled through my phone and was asked multiple times if I was okay, which I brought up the situation and then was told, you have inside jokes with one of us that no one else understands, which just made me feel horrible about being upset because I felt left out. In the end, I had my boyfriend pick me up, and I cried on the way home, telling him that I feel like an asshole and I feel stupid for thinking this. So she wants to know, is she the asshole? I think no. I think one of the key things here, even if there is something going on with the friends, or maybe she's misinterpreting how very left out she felt, the fact remains that her friends were like ditching her at bars, and she's 21, and which means they're all about the same, which means that they were not considering her safety in those environments. It's very easy when you're in those types of environments as a young woman to come into danger, and people who prey upon women in those environments look for women like her who are isolated from the group that they're with, or something along those lines. But I had friends when we were all younger that went out in a group together, and they still ended up they woke up at separate ends of town with no idea where to get there, and some of them were missing some of their clothing, and at least one of them woke up in the hospital, having been taken to the hospital, and again, none of them knew how they got there, and as far as they could piece together, they had all been drugged and separated, in spite of being at the bar in a group and looking out for each other. So, this woman is not wrong to be upset, because baseline, most important thing, her friends put her in danger and did not look out for her. That being said, my, I think, personal almost bias in this situation is that I remember being younger and having friends who would like ditch me partway through the night. When I was 21 years old in that area, I had a friend who would hang out with me if no one else was around, but the minute another person was around, my friend would no longer stay in the same room as me. If I came into the room, she would leave with whoever else was there with her. So I guess I felt like I became this like lost puppy or something, following people around trying to get them to hang out with me. Then they would be like really not very receptive to my concerns or anything, and they would do same thing that this woman's friends are doing, which I think feels a lot like gaslighting. I think the fact that she cried and felt bad for being upset means that she was being gaslighted by her friends, because her friends were making her focus on the badness of her reaction to them instead of trying to adjust their behavior to make her feel more included. So my personal takeaway from this is that she's not the asshole, that her friends are the assholes, perhaps, and that at the very least she should be quite wary of going anywhere, drinking with them in the future, because she's less safe around people who won't look out for her or partner up with her. So that's that. If you have any differing opinions, let me know in the comments. Whatever. So the next one I have from Reddit's not from Am I the Asshole? I know that's a really popular one, but this one is about career advice. And it says, my sister wants to go back to work, but her husband won't let her. So it says, this is not as bad as the title makes it sound. I just don't know a better way to put it. Which, side note, before we get into this, a lot of times when people say the title is not as bad as it sounds, it absolutely is as bad as it sounds. So, strap in. My sister had a very successful career in HR before before deciding to stay home when her son turned 6 months old. He's now 2.5, and she decided to stay home for a variety of reasons. The first being that her son was sick frequently after starting daycare at 3 months. He had a scary stint with RSV, then he had COVID, then hand, foot, mouth disease. And she was taking a lot of time off of work to treat his illnesses. It was affecting her performance, not to mention her family was also catching all of these illnesses. The second reason is that daycare in the New England region, and maybe everywhere, is extremely expensive, and it was costing her half of her salary, which wasn't really worth her time. Now, not working is starting to affect her mental health, as it does, oh my goodness, as someone who was a stay-at-home mom, it does very quickly. It's very isolating. There's nothing to do. Your entire life revolves around meeting the needs of another person, and while that can be very rewarding, you absolutely need something to keep you grounded in who you are, because that person is not going to need you forever, and the amount of needing you that they need at that time can be very stripping of it. Strips you of your identity and your ability to even feel like you're allowed to prioritize yourself. So not working has started to affect her mental health. She's given up on most of her passions as well, because everything she does is for the family. She cooks, cleans, does all the shopping, even mows the lawn and takes out the trash. If her son wakes up at night, she's the one that handles it. Her husband gets praised for doing the bare minimum and is rarely the parent who disciplines, but he gets to save the day and be the cool dad or the fun parent. I spent time with her this weekend, and I just took her out for lunch, and he asked her why the dishes weren't loaded in the dishwasher before we left. Oh my gosh. I cannot imagine having someone ask me that question without me immediately saying some saucy, snappy something back at them. What a doofus. Anyway, we took her son with us so that the husband could go to a beer tasting with his friends, and then we came home and he was playing video games half drunk. So again, why didn't he load the dishes? Oh, I can't imagine either, the amount of times that women are encouraged to feel like they've been given a fair break when they have to take their children with them. And that's frustrating too, because a lot of times you take your kids places and the people are like, why did you bring this child here? Anyway, back to the post. She shared with me that her son could go back to daycare because the slot had just opened up, but her husband won't allow her to go back to work, and he claims it's because of the cost. My sister has gone on antidepressants recently because she's not happy, and I'm genuinely concerned for her. He wants to have a second child. She wants to wait. Has anyone else experienced this dynamic? Side note, yes, lots of us have. How do you navigate it? As a sister, do I even have a right to interject? I don't want to overstep a boundary, but I also don't want her to jump off a cliff. Okay, so before we get to the edit or the update, I just want to put in a little bit of my 2 cents. I'm not going to get into what I think the reasons why are, but for some reason, a lot of men are heavily invested in ensuring that women do not work outside of the house, and that when a woman is ready to go back to work, often men do bring up having more children. I have seen it happen before. I am lucky that it didn't happen to me, but I have seen it happen to people very close to me who felt trapped in their homes and who felt like the power imbalance that came from not bringing in money made it so that their lives were very, very, very restricted outside of just being a parent and having that be isolating on its own. So I don't think that her sister is imagining things. I don't think that the poster is wrong to be worried, and I think that she is well within her rights and not overstepping boundaries to say to her sister, I am concerned support you having an identity outside of this home, and I support you asserting your desires or your will in this relationship. Okay, so here's the edit. The title of the post comes from my sister telling me he's not as bad as he sounds, which led to an hour-long conversation about how awful he is. That's usually how it goes. Sometimes it's hard to see an outside perspective when you are living it. Wise, wise words. Her husband has a demanding career, and she often uses that as an excuse for his shitty behavior. The whole salary thing doesn't make sense to me. Why isn't he taking his salary in consideration and just focusing on hers as the reason not to use daycare? My guess is because he assumes that his money is his and her money is ours, so to speak. For context, I'm a woman with a toddler myself, but in a same-sex marriage where gender roles go out the window. My wife and I both work. And I noticed something was off with my sister because we talk weekly, which is why I initiated the lunch outing. My brother-in-law comes from a big Italian family where his mom stayed home to raise 5 boys, and maybe his crappy behavior is a reflection of his early socialization. That's actually likely, and it's also likely that nothing has ever asked him to examine that. And this is maybe even the first time in his life he's been asked to examine those roles and those influences. That's very, very, very possible. And if that's the case, it's usually quite difficult to be humbled in that way and to have to examine your values and worldviews. But I think it's also beneficial, and you should definitely do it. Most of us are strong enough to handle it. So she says that either way, this has got to stop. And I think that this will be the start of a long road to either couples therapy or divorce. And I will give one more opinion before we move on this. I think that couples therapy is probably a good place to start here, because again, it's very possible his first child, he doesn't know that he's perpetuating these ideas, and he thinks that he's trying to be like a good father by making sure his wife can stay home and support the children. So maybe he is coming from a good place. You never know. I think though that it would probably benefit him and their marriage in the long run if he can view his wife as a separate entity from himself and from the mother of his children and from someone who has a role within his family, so that he can see that she has emotions and needs and desires and drives that don't cater to him. I really wish that for him, and I wish for her that he can see that so that she can move on in her life and find the fulfillment and happiness that she deserves. Best wishes to everyone involved in that one. Okay, so here's the next one. This one's really short. It's called Off. It says, I'm not sure why, but I feel extremely guilty about calling off to work. Does anyone have any encouraging words for me? And then that's it. So that's fun, nice and short, sweet, to the point. And here are my encouraging words to you. Take the time you need, whether it is to feel terrible or to feel good or to rest or just because you need some time for you because you exist in this world. And this is the time that you exist in this world, and your job will replace you if you're gone. So show up for you and don't let your job bully you about it, because they're temporary, and they're more temporary than you are. So as far as their presence in your life. So do you take care of you. You are first, and you are who's going to show up for you most consistently, and I'm proud of you for calling out. Last one. I am quitting a high-paying corporate job. I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice on Friday, and I cannot wait. Have been miserable for months and months. I haven't had more than 2 weeks off from working in 13 years. I feel my life has been passing by, and I don't value a high-paying salary and all the corporate hula hoop bullshit anymore. I'd rather bet on myself, report to myself, do what I want, when I want, over being undervalued and burned out, taking a huge risk on giving up a company in which my financial future is set. I'm definitely nervous and or I'm definitely nervous about my financial future, but let's see what happens. Just cannot wait to see the boss's face when I tell them Friday morning. And to that I say, hooray, congratulations. I hope that when you put in your notice that it was every bit as shocking for them as you hoped, that you got all of the catharsis that you needed from that. I hope that whatever you do moving forward is going to go well for you, and I have a feeling it will, because I feel like corporate worlds and the working world wants you to believe that that option in front of you is the only option you have, and that any other option you might pursue is foolish, because this is the option you have, and you should be thankful for it, even if it's destroying you, and that's ridiculous. You are you, and you are what you have in this world, and if you don't show up for you, and if you don't show up for your happiness, no one else is going to take that on. So, and if you have people in your life who are willing to say, hey, you should show up for yourself, count yourself very blessed. But at the end of the day, even with those people, they're telling you and supporting you and egging you on to show up for yourself. You're the one that still has to do it. So, mad respect to this person. I am so excited for them and their future. I wish them well, and I extend those things out to you as well. All of those well wishes and all of that positivity and hope for the future. Like, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself, because even if you fail, you'll learn something. You'll learn something, and you'll be better off than when you started. You'll be wiser and more informed and better equipped for whatever's next. So, let me know in the comments if you have any opinions on any of the stuff I talked about today. Like and subscribe if you're still here. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Let me know if you like these types of videos. I would love to read more Reddit stuff.